Pháp dương vô thượng tôn, tam giới vô luân thập. Thiên nhân chi đạo, sư tử sanh chi từ phù. Nhất niệm quy năng diệt tam kỳ nghiệp. Sướng dương nhược tán thán, ức kiếp mạt năng tầng.
Nam Mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. We now start lecture number 4 with the reading of the Sutra Attacks. Once the Buddha entered the castle, King Ravana and his supporters continued to shower him with special gift offerings. Nets of jewels were offered to the Buddha by young Yakshas. King Ravana also offered the Buddha and Bodhisattvas beautiful jewelry necklaces and encouraged the Bodhisattvas to discourse the consciousness that each had realized in the inmost selves. King Ravana and fellow Yakshas also honored and made a request to Mahamati Bodhisattva as follows. All the Master and I wish to ask the Blessed One, the state of consciousness realized in the inmost self by all the Buddhas. All the Yakshas and I and the Bodhisattvas with one mind desire to hear, together sincerely request, thou art among the highest of all the practitioners and the most eloquent of speakers. I sincerely request that thou ask the Tathagata about the self-realization Dharma, which can deliver us to Buddhahood, free from all the faults of outsiders and the Vayana. After hearing these texts, you can tell that King Ravana and his followers were not the normal Yakshas, but were mentally ready for higher Dharma training. So they made offerings to the Buddha and the Bodhisattvas once they entered the castle. They probably had studied the sutras and wished for more Dharma teaching so they can be completely liberated. Mahamati Bodhisattva was an eloquent speaker as well as an accomplished practitioner. So King Ravana had asked him to kindly represent them in asking the Buddha about the self-realization Dharma. In Buddhism, due to the different capabilities of each being, the Buddha taught about the three vehicles. They are the Hinayana, or the lesser vehicle, the Viyana, or the middle vehicle, and the Mahayana, or the greater vehicles. Hinayana is represented by the practitioners who learn to quiet their minds from the Dharma teachings that they saw or heard. They practice in adherence to the Four Noble Truth teachings of the Buddha. Once achieved, they are called voice-hearer arhats. The Viyana is represented by the practitioners who will be born at the time when Buddhism and its sutras no longer exist. They will see the emptiness and transit state of everything, understand the 12 nidanas, or the 12 links in the chain of existence, overcome them, see their pure minds, and become enlightened. They would help their fellow beings by using supernatural powers, but would not have the wisdom to lecture on the Dharmas. They are known as Yuen Yak Arhats or Bichi Phap or Pratyeka Buddha or solitary enlightened one. Mahayana is represented by achieved arhats who stay in their small nirvana for a long time until one day they develop compassionate feelings for all beings. Ayidapha. The arhats really love to be in a blissful state, but after a long time, they will remember the offerings they were given in the past when they were beginners. Now that they have awakened, they feel that they should go back and help all beings to pay back the kindness given, as well as to make progress on their way of reaching Buddhahood. They would then re-enter the world and, depending on special circumstances, help fellow beings to see the truth. These are called bodhisattvas of the Mahayana path. For non-arhats, if that person's goal is to reach the Buddhahood stage by practicing the 6 paramitas or Lukno Balama, then that practitioners can be considered as following the Mahayana path. We should be aware that these 3 vehicles are just methods to liberate 3 types of practitioners in the world. The 3 types are mentioned by the Buddha as follows. 1. Lower level. This type is very much stuck on the forms. Even while practicing, they have biases based on forms. They would judge on the look and the way a person walks or stands or eats or drinks. Basically, any form that they think a practitioner should be doing and was not done, then they would judge that practitioner to be at fault. They like beautiful Buddha statues, or the monk robes should be in this color or have a certain brightness, or when they walk, they prefer to walk barefoot and look down to avoid the insects below. Besides forms, there are practitioners who are stuck on words and prayers. If they don't use it, then they feel that they have not done their share of daily practices. They would have prayers chant up to 6 sessions a day. They thought by doing these daily rituals, they would achieve salvation. 2. Mid-level. These Pratyeka Buddhas do not exist yet. They will come into this world once Buddhism and all of its teaching are no more. They are achieved but are stuck on emptiness. They possess supernatural powers but do not have the wisdom to lecture on the Dhammas. 3. High level. These practitioners are not stuck on forms anymore. They know that their future worlds are created by their minds, so they work hard to have a blissful mind and meditate upon the meanings of the Dhammas and anything that would disturb their minds, so they can see its reality and be liberated. They practice in silence and don't need ritual bells and drums in their walk. All they need is a room of 6 feet by 3 feet, so they can place their bed and sit down to meditate. Do you see the practitioners who live quietly in the mountain? They are there so that they can completely focus on their minds. These 3 levels represent the vehicles needed to deliver the lower, mid, and high-level types to their pure mind. As a result, do not judge others based on which vehicle a practitioner is on, Because if you do, then you are guilty of defaming one another, which will cause you to lose your compassionate mind. Remember that the three vehicles teaching came from the Buddha himself, because the practitioner's mind came in three levels. So the Blessed One, depending on the circumstances, would teach the right vehicle accordingly. So you must respect a practitioner of lesser vehicles to maintain peaceful harmony and retain your compassion for all. All beings appreciate encouragement and helpful words. Now we talk about the meaning of this section. It said that King Ravana must have grand wisdom in order to comprehend the meaning of self-realization Dharma of the Tathagata. This self-realization Dharma cannot be understood and performed by someone without wisdom. And where does this wisdom come from? Some might think that this knowledge comes from books or other worldly sources. That is not correct. Prajna wisdom can only be accessed through deep meditation or samadhi, which would give you a blissful mind to see everything clearly. Your mind would be similar to the surface of a lake in the autumn season, without wind. It would be so still that when you look down, you could see the lake's bottom through the surface water. Similarly, with a blissful mind, you could see the reality of all dharmas. The self-realization Dharma cannot be comprehended through words. The Buddha used words to explain the Dharma for the mid-level practitioner. But with prajna wisdom, only the high-level practitioner can fully understand through the usage of samadhi. You can see that there are different ways to train your mind. In Buddhism, we have Zen Meditation, Tantriism, and Pure Land or Sukhavati practice. These are the three sects derived from the Buddha's teaching to help all beings depending on their karmic connection. But to achieve complete liberation that the Buddha had gone through, which method did you see him used? He achieved liberation through meditation, which is 49 days meditating under the Bodhi tree. He meditated and reflected on the Dharmas and completely understood its realities. He eliminated the three minds and four forms. He transformed the five skandhas into emptiness. With that, he was completely liberated from the three realms and was enlightened. Today, do you see how compassionate the Buddha was? Very compassionate, because the evidence is that he showed us the Pure Land practice for beings who could not meditate to see their pure mind, but instead focus and rely on the name of Ajita Buddha, so that when they die, the blessing effect of constantly focusing on Ajita Buddha name can deliver them to the Western paradise. Note that the world of Ajita Buddha is similar to this world, but it is more spiritually advanced, so that you would not have to be concerned with eating, drinking, or clothing. The beings here do not possess a violent mind, so they have very high longevity. If you have good blessings and your mind is peaceful and do not want to kill any beings, then you will live a long time. The reason is that the karma fruit of killing is a limited future lifespan. Once you have lived 1,000 lifetimes that do not have killings, then future lifespan after that will have great longevity. You cannot say that the Western paradise is nirvana because even Ajita Buddha will eventually pass on from that world. So the world that has death or an ending cannot be considered nirvana, which is everlasting. So even if you pray to go to the Western paradise after death, you will eventually be incarnated back to this world and go through the pains and sufferings and continue your practice again. If that is the case, then why go there? Every world has birth and death. Just come back here and continue your growth in this world of Sakyamuni Buddha. Why waste your time going to the Western paradise when you can choose a higher training level and liberate yourself? I'm not here to criticize any of these practices because these three were introduced by the Buddha himself. I'm just trying to show you the good and bad of each practice. You choose the path based on your ability. So you see the Buddha was very compassionate in that he used all means to help save beings from suffering. Now we continue on with the Sutra text. At that moment, the Buddha used his spiritual powers and created thousands of jewel-adorned mountains. At the peak of each mountain, the Buddha, King Ravana, and all the yaksas appeared. Countries from all directions also appeared. And in each country there was the appearance of the Buddha, King Ravana, the yaksas, Asoka Garden, and the Lanka Castle. Each place also has the appearance of Mahamati, requesting the Buddha to lecture on the self-realization dharmas for the sakes of the yaksas. The Buddha delivered the sutras through thousands of different sounds. Afterward, the Buddha and everyone else would disappear into thin air. Once King Ravana only saw himself standing in the castle. He thought to himself, who is the person seeing this? Who is the person hearing the Dharma? Who saw? What was seen? Where did the Buddha and all the jewel mountains disappear to? Is this a dream? Is this an illusion? Or was it conjured up by the Gandharvas? Or is it dust in the eyes? Or is it a dream child of a barren woman? Is this an illusion of a fire wheel? He continued to think. The nature of all dharmas is like this. It is a vision due to the biased mind. The ignorant are deluded, so cannot comprehend. Strangely, neither the seer nor what is seen, neither the lecturer or what is lectured. Seeing the Buddha and hearing the Dharma are all from a biased mind. Those who saw what was described could not have seen the Buddha. Right at that moment, King Ravana was awakened. Leaving behind his biased mind and understood that all dharmas were created by the mind. He settled into the non-discriminating state. Due to blessing from all the good deeds he had done in the past, he now saw the reality of all dharmas. He was no more dependent upon others' guidance, but can use his own mind to see things clearly and became an achieved master. A-di-đà Phật. Did you hear the great transformation of a practitioner once he was awakened? It sounds quite amazingly shocking. This section has deep meaning. For those who do not have enough wisdom, they will not believe and be suspicious if the Buddha can really perform such supernatural feats. There needs to be common connection to Buddhism before one can believe. Even if they believe, then they might think the Buddha was a bodhisattva from the fourth heavenly world before he came down to this world, which explains his achievement, whereas they are just a commoner, so how can they similarly follow? This is one of the roots of a practitioner's failure to liberate himself. Currently, all of you here have a chance to listen to a Mahayana Sutra. This is not a normal occurrence. Think about it. If you have no common connection to the Mahayana message, you will never listen. Therefore, I can conclude that for those of you listening today, you have made offerings to the Buddhas of 10 directions in your past lives. You have done many good deeds, which is why you have the chance to hear the Mahayana Sutra. So don't underestimate yourself, thinking that you cannot reach Buddhahood if you start in this lifetime. There are many stages in Buddhism, from Arhats, Pratyeka Buddha, Bodhisattva, and then Buddha. If you reach Arhat level, then you would have pacified your 6 senses and attained the small nirvana, which is a great feat in itself. Therefore, don't think liberation is so far off and give up because you don't know who you are yet. Because you are currently deluded. But if you knew that you came from one of the heavenly worlds, then you would probably be very diligent. I think you should assume that you came from one of the heavens, so you can be more motivated to practice and improve further. I think this is a good way to approach your practice, because it would bring good benefits. You can see King Ravana was very committed to understanding the Dharma, but his discriminating mind toward forms and Dharma still exists. He had not realized that all Dharmas that were continuously transforming were created by the mind wandering outside. You all sometimes would feel the pain and sufferings in your mind and cry out loud, not knowing that they all arise from conditional causation. For example, when the second Zen patriarch, Huệ Khả Đại Sư, told his teacher Bodhidharma that his mind was not pacified, Bodhidharma replied that you should give me that troubling mind. When Huệ Khả Đại Sư looked inward to find his troubling mind, he did not find it, which resulted in Bodhidharma to say that he has pacified Huệ Khả Đại Sư mind. People hold on to their wrong outward views, which cause pains and suffering inside. The reality is that your mind have always been quiet. There was a Zen monk asking his master, "How can I be awakened like the Buddha?" The master replied, "Show me where in your mind is not the Buddha mind." This means that we continue to live with wrong views, which cause pains and suffering. It is all our fault. We continuously look at our pure mind but we could not see it. Why could we not see? Because our minds are full of wrong views, so we could not see what is right in front of us. Once we leave our differentiating thoughts behind, then we will see it. A Zen master once asked his student, "How are you doing with the tending of the cow in your mind?" The student replied, "Dear master, my cow used to be black, but it is now white, and it keeps standing in front of me. I could not chase it away." You see, the path has an end, but you have not gotten there yet. Who has caused you pain and suffering? Sit down and meditate deeply to find your answer. In order to remove the wrong views, the Buddha used his supernatural powers and followed the mind of King Ravana. He made the image appear and then completely removed them afterward. The Buddha could have used words to explain the Dharmas, but instead used visual images. He knew the king was stuck on the visual form, so he used images to teach him. He knew what the king was thinking and used those images to shock the king, to wake him up when he made those images disappear into thin air. This is also a skillful means for the Buddha to wake up someone who had wrong views. Our world was also transformed by innumerable discriminating minds. Look at the ocean. Why do we have such vast oceans? It was generated by the passionate and lustful minds of being. Why do we have hills and mountains? It was generated by the discriminating and evil thoughts of being. Without wisdom, most people are not aware of this and will become deluded and create the three poisons, which are greed, anger, and ignorance. When you have wrong views of the outside world, you will want to take and own it. The three poisons will transform into sharp blades in your minds, cutting us into pieces and causing great pains. It is your fault for accepting false view. Due to greed, anger, and ignorance, the universe manifested itself into three categories, which are the world of desires, forms, and formlessness. This world go hand in hand with these three poisons. If your mind doesn't have these three poisons, then these three worlds will disappear. In order to demonstrate the truth of all dharmas, the Buddha used his supernatural powers to materialize the worlds and then make them all disappear. If you were there at that time, what do you think you would do afterward? I am sure you all would reflect to find the answer to your question or suspicions. You would meditate on what you have seen, and hopefully, once your mind are settled, the wisdom would arise. You probably did not expect that when you are meditating. Once you leave the outside world and focus on what is within, then you have momentarily pacified your mind. The Buddha knew and intentionally created the scenario for King Ravana to enter the blissful mind. King Ravana's reflections are: 1. Who is seeing all these fantastic images? This question is a Zen Cohen for him to find himself. If you still see your ego, then you are not selfless, and your mind is still attached to the outside world. This world would manifest and cause you pain and suffering. 2. He also asked, who had heard the Dhamma discourse? Who has seen these things? And what was it that was seen? This represents the second Cohen riddle. If there is a vision, then who was it that heard the Dhamma? And what was it that was seen? You all know that if you saw the vision, then emotion would rise. This stir of emotion through what was seen attached to the wrong views, so the pure mind could not wake up. This person could not realize that the pure mind should be selfless to all the form outside. Due to attachment, the mind now sees four forms, which are self, all the people, all beings, and impermanence of everything. These will confuse and attach to you. If you cannot remove these four forms, then you will be stuck in the endless cycle of birth and death within this universe. 3. Where did the Buddhas and the jewels adorned mountain disappear to? Was it a dream? Was it an illusion from my mind? This is the third Cohen riddle. A person with great wisdom knows that all outside forms are generated by innumerable and continuous thoughts of the mind. Because of this, the wise person doesn't get attached. If the outside world did not attract your attention, then what will be generated? Obviously, it is a birthless mind, which is not bounded by the three realms, world of desires, forms, and formlessness. From reading this section of the sutra, some can be awakened quickly. If not, it is because that person do not understand that all dharmas are part of oneness. He thought that this world is this way, so since he was here, he need to experience the world that way. He did not know that this world was created by the mind. If he died and closed his eyes, then he would realize that this world would completely disappear. The world from his subconsciousness or passive mind would appear. He would migrate from one world to another. For an achieved master, he does not get pulled into a world due to his karma. He is free to go and settle into his small nirvana. So you can see, both are humans, but a practitioner ends up in a different place than a non-practitioner. Some without wisdom who experience a great and wonderful life will be saddened when it all disappears. Some would develop depression and want to end their life so they don't have to face such great loss. A millionaire who lost all his money in the market, or a person who lost all of his possessions due to war, are examples of such unwise people. They do not know that their wealth was a result of their blessing due to past good deeds. There was a king in one of the heavens who, when he was born, had 7 great blessings following him and gave him a great life. However, once he dies, those blessings automatically disappear with him, and his heir slowly lose them. So you all need to remember that blessings and forms are created by your minds. I had great blessing when I came to this world. Had I incarnated into a poor family, wealth would find a way to enter that family. 4. Now we talk about the fourth reflection. King Ravana thought, or was it conjured up by Gandharvas? Or was it dust in the eyes? Or is it a dream child of a barren woman? Gandharvas are gods in the second heaven who specialize in music. On important days, they usually get together to perform music to entertain Dethat or Indra, the lord of the gods. Where they get together is a vision that exists high up in the mountain peak, which often touches the clouds and which seldom have people nearby. This is the image conjured up by Gandharvas that the king Ravana mentioned. It appears and disappears, so it is a false image in our world. Now we talk about the dream child of a barren woman. This refers to a woman that could not have a child, but wishes to have one. This is a dream to that woman. There is a story that mentions a town in the Himalayas where the villagers' livelihood was through hunting. And they also have deep faith in goddesses. They worship two goddesses that were carved up in a stone. These two goddesses were sisters from one of the heavens. The villagers often made offerings to these goddesses with the meat of their recent hunts. One day, the younger goddess was quite sad, and the older one wondered why. Even though they had everything, and the villagers worshipped and highly respected them, she came over and asked the young sister, why wasn't she satisfied? And she answered, for thousands of years, there were only two of us, and this area is so lonely, and I desire to have a child. The older responded, you are a goddess made of stone. How can you have a child? The younger one said, haven't you heard of the story of the famous monkey king who was born out of a mountain stone? If any of you ever heard of the story named Journey to the West, then you would know about this monkey king. The older sister agreed to the idea of having a child and suggested that they both go to the same mountain that the monkey king came from and bring back a similar stone, and each night they would use their spiritual powers, nurture it with their bodies, giving it heat and love, and slowly transform it to a baby. They both follow the plan to bring back the stone from the famous mountain and every night apply their powers. After 1,000 years, this stone did not change and remained a stone. This story represents a dream child of a barren woman. We here are the same, living in the three realms. We hold on to all the wealth and beauties of the world, like holding on to a rock. We continuously hold on to it. Due to the innumerable amount of people also holding on to this rock, it is transformed into a world of desires, and it also holds back onto these people and not letting them be free. This rock has fame, powers, and beauties, which we all love, and in return, it imprisons us. We voluntarily stay in this world and accept continuous cycles of birth and death. This dream child of a barren woman shocked and awakened King Ravana. He began to understand what he had and knew that everything was created by the mind. He had grand awakening after this because he now fully understood and didn't need to search for an answer from anyone. Small awakening is when you read a sutra and understand that concept, but it wasn't strong enough to shock you out of your delusion. We need to live in a mind that sees the reality of the truth. Thanh thiệt tánh. Most people live in an active mind and are stuck in the outside world. True practitioners know that all dharmas are one, or vạn pháp nhất như. So they live in the true mind, which is egoless and a non-rising mind. Living in this mind, he does not see the seer or what is seen. He does not see the preacher and the hearer. Because when we can see or hear, then we are still living in a false view, which means your mind has not been pacified. It is still affected by what is seen outside. You see forms, you see yourself, then you still have pains. No forms, no ego, no suffering. A-di-đà Phật. If you listen to the sutra, it can be very wordy and long. Just remember these two lines instead. See forms, see yourselves, pain exists. No forms, no ego, no sufferings. These two lines are high level. It can liberate you and help you see the truth and no longer be stuck on forms. So do you like studying Zen? You should, because it can completely liberate you from all suffering in this lifetime. Zen does not teach you superstition so that you recite the Buddha's name so he can hear you and give you points and receive you when you die. It is not like this. You yourself have to see the transient state of our thoughts so you can eliminate it. Then you will naturally see the true character of your mind. Once King Ravana realized that all dharmas are one, or no forms, no self, then his mind was completely liberated. All wrong views disappeared and his liberated mind surfaced. The chains of the three realms broke off. You see that you don't need to eliminate the three realms, but just pacify your mind, and the three realms will go away. You practice hard, and one day you will see the disappearance of desires, forms, and formlessness. You will then be settled into a world of bliss and tranquility. Deluded people will say that there is no such thing as nirvana, but through my teaching, you can clearly see nirvana exists. It is right in front of all beings, but because you are deluded, you hold on to false view, then you still suffer. Pray to the east, to the west, and because you don't have enough understanding, you pray to the outside world. The more you pray outwardly, the more you take your false views and cover up your true mind, and further contaminate your mind. All I wish is that you spend more time meditating and pacifying your mind. Help it to see the impermanent nature of everything, and that everything outside was created by the mind, so that it will eventually recognize that all dharmas are one and see the reality of your mind. King Ravana no longer needed someone help him to see the truth. His mind surpassed the three realms because in the oneness of all dharmas, nothing can contaminate his mind. The only way something can imprison your mind is when you allow false view to take shape. The main point of practicing is to remove your false view so your true mind can manifest. That is all there is. A-di-đà Phật. You can see that King Ravana is not a bald-headed monk or wears a monk robe, but was already a grand practitioner. Awakening is not dependent on the form of a bald-headed monk leaving the world, but on your ability to understand your mind. What do you think you need to liberate? It is understanding your true nature, no longer bound to the outside world, no longer stuck in the world of desires, form and formlessness. This is liberation. King Ravana can now be considered as a child of the Dharma King because he was born out of the words of the Buddha's Dharma. He can use his own experience to discourse the Dharma and liberate all beings. You see, a demon king can achieve this, while we are good-hearted humans but could not. You should be ashamed of yourself. When I read this sutra section, I hope you all practice harder, because you are all blessed to be in this human form and have a chance to hear the sutra. There is no reason you could not achieve it. Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật.